In this video, I'm going to review the trades that were called out in the chat room for September 16th to September 20th. And we're going to take a quick look here at most of the price action that took place on last week anyway. This is the euro dollar 1 hour time frame. And you can see that we were pretty much stuck inside of the range that was created from ECB the prior week. And price never really went up to resistance or support. It just kind of bounced around. And when price makes this S-shaped price swing, these price swings are tighter and tighter, one inside of a previous one. I trade less. I get fewer signals. They're not as reliable. It's very difficult to figure out exactly where your entry point is and where your stop should be. That's one of the things I'm always calculating. If I see a signal, I have to figure out where's the target and where's the stop, and is the reward worth the risk. And for the most part, when I see price inside of this tight moving range, eventually it's going to turn around and break. Again, I just have to wait for it, or wait for price to bounce off of support or resistance. So I had one losing trade. I haven't had really any losing trades in the last few months in the chat room with all the trades that I call out. But this one was actually a trade. I tried executing a trade up here at a bounce off of this support, and I lost 9 pips. That was it, 9 pips. That's not typical. I have to be totally honest. Sometimes, I'll experience a loss that's maybe 25, maybe 32 pips. It could happen, but it doesn't usually happen. And very often, and I say that I'm an extremely patient trader. So if you're going to join the chat room, I called out a trade and my loss was just 9 pips. That's it. The rest of the trades were all winning trades. I had a previous trade on the pound dollar. I'll show you that in just a moment here. That was 46 pips. Another trade on the pound dollar, 20 pips. Another trade on the dollar yen, 43 pips. So most of the trades are going to be decent, good trades. So I'm very, very patient. I don't scalp. So if you join the chat room and you expect a lot of activity, so for most of the week on this pair, I really didn't get any signals. It was some of the other currency pairs that I had to trade off of. And I'll wait 1, maybe 2 sessions before I get a good solid setup, and then I'll execute. So I'm looking to be right 100% of the time. Now, when I say that, I know that sometimes people think, well, you can't be right 100% of the time, right? I know that. I do know that. It's my goal and my attempt is to be right 100% of the time according to me controlling my behavior and executing my trade system, my plan. Not chasing price up and down just because I'm bored, not chasing price because it's been a few hours since I got a trade, and I don't chase price up and down when I see the news reacting and I'm not too sure which direction it should really go in. I've been trading for over 18 years, and I learned the hard way that when I jump into trades and I don't understand why price is moving, that's usually when the trade will fail. So because I'm responsible for calling out these trades in the chat room, I'm very, very particular about which trades that I call out and which trades I execute. I trade standard lots, so I trade the equivalent of multiple standard lots. And I know that a lot of other chat room members are trading 1 to 5 standard lots in the chat room, maybe even more. So they're looking to earn $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 or more a month in the chat room as a result of my trades. So it's very important, again, that I'm very calculating and very careful with each one of these techniques and trades when I execute the trades. So if the price structure isn't right or it isn't optimum for my trade setups, I leave it alone. I wasn't able to do that in the beginning of my trading career. In the beginning of my trading career, I acted just like everybody else did. I was excited. I jumped in and out. I chased price. I changed my mind. I changed the stop. I changed the target. I did all kinds of things. And I found, again, just by many, many, many years of trading and losing a lot of money, that it's just a lot easier for me to have, let's say, 5 trades in 1 week or 7 trades or even 12 trades in 1 week and have all of them be winning trades. I can earn 100 pips to 500 pips to 700 pips in a week when I do that. So far for this month, we're up over 1,100 pips, and it's because I do this exactly. Like I wait for these specific opportunities to trade, and I do nothing else until the trade comes to me. So if you join the chat room, that's exactly what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to call out a trade that I know in my mind, it has a 100% chance of being a winning trade. And it usually is. So the biggest loss that I've experienced in quite some time has been this trade here on the euro dollar, where I lost just 9 pips. I'll show you the pound dollar. There was a few other trades here. So the pound dollar, if we go back to last week's trade here, actually it was on my breakout page. This is I'm sorry, the reversals page. So there are different templates that I use. There's different strategies. I use a breakout strategy, a breakout of consolidation, which requires confirming with different indicators, and then the reversal trades here that you see use different indicators. So this was the pound dollar trade. We earned 46 pips on this trade. And again, I'm using Bollinger Bands to help me identify and confirm the reversal. And then I'm also using bandwidth, and I'm using CCI. I'm using the CCI indicator to help me confirm these reversals. I'll show you a couple other trades. So there was also a few other trades where this was the reversal here on the dollar yen. So the dollar yen broke above resistance, and at that point it looked like maybe or perhaps it could have been a continuation breakout trade. That's the other strategy. That's actually the first strategy that I developed back in 2001. That requires the use of different indicators to confirm that trade. But I use a very specific entry. And the fact that we did not get an entry on that breakout to the upside kept us out of trouble. And what I mean by that is that we weren't tempted to go long either into resistance, or when that candle closed above resistance, we still weren't tempted to go long. It looked like it was probably going to roll over and end up being a head fake. So I have some trade filters that I put each one of my trades into. So when I get a signal, that is just one part of the trade. And this is one of the biggest mistakes. I'm going to share this idea with you, and regardless of whose trading strategy you're using, mine, yours, or somebody else's, this might really help you get a better understanding of what you should look at or think about when you get a trade. So when I would get signals and I would get trades, I'd see a pattern, and I would see maybe a bullish or bearish engulfing candle, and I would just trade what I saw, just the bearish or bullish engulfing candle. And I would immediately think, okay, this is going to go up, let's say 20 pips or so. Let's say I had a target. That's only one part of trading, in my opinion. And this is what I mean by that. So the ability to identify a trade and have a trade system that you know works, and then the ability to find the targets that you know consistently will, price will reach those targets, and then the stop loss, that's just one piece. That's just like leading up to the moment that you get that trade. And then, of course, the confidence and the confirmation and everything that goes with it. But what I realized back in 2002 and 2003 as I was developing my own trading strategy is that there's another side to trading, which is just because I see a signal candle, what happens when I get into the trade and it just goes sideways? What happens to those trades where you see, let's say, a bullish candle, let's say right here, and you think it's going to go higher? And it goes higher a little bit, but it doesn't really go very far. Let's say the high of that candle is 18, and the high of that red candle is 26. And you were expecting, let's say, 50, or for price to take out the highs of the week. What if it doesn't? What if it just goes sideways? What if it doesn't really go very far? You can see that it happened a few times. And you can also see some bearish candles in here at resistance. I would have traded these back in 2001. I would have traded these candles at resistance thinking, well, it's got to come down. It's got to come down. It's got to come down. I see this bearish engulfing candle. I see some of these indicators confirming. I got to sell it. And I would put on a short, and it wouldn't go anywhere. It would just go sideways, and then perhaps I'd get stopped out, and I would wonder why. What's happening? What's wrong? What am I doing wrong? I can identify the candle pattern. I have confirmed with the indicators. I can see that it's at resistance. From a technical perspective, it appears that I'm doing everything right. But is that all there is to finding a trade and confirming a trade? And here's what I want to share with you. When I see a trade like this set up, not only do I do everything that I just described as far as identifying and confirming the technical setup, at resistance, confirmation, all the indicators that I use, yours might be different depending on the strategy you're using. But is it even likely to come down if I was to short it to some of these expected take profit levels or back down to the weekly support level? So I've got to ask myself, if I take this trade, is there enough momentum at the time that I find this signal to justify this trade going lower? Is there any reason why I could expect price to move back down towards these take profit levels if I was to sell it within a considerable amount of time? Maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 hours, whatever it is. Instead of avoiding a situation where price goes sideways inside of consolidation for 2 or 3 days. Because that used to happen to me, and I know it may be happening to you, and it's frustrating. You see the candle pattern, you're doing everything that you think you're supposed to do that's correct, and yet it still doesn't go anywhere. Not only is it possible that price could eventually come back down to these support levels, but what if it takes 24 hours? You're exhausted. You're watching the trade. You don't know what to do with it. It makes you nervous. If you're trading standard lots, that will make most people nervous. They're trading about $10 a pip. They could potentially lose quite a bit. That's what I was going through. So I figured out ways to determine and measure and calculate how busy and how active it is at the time I see a signal. This is critical because if I'm going to get into a trade and expect price to go to the targets, I want to know that I'm trading with the market momentum, with enough participation, and I could expect that price is going to reach that target in a relatively short period of time. For me, it could be 4 or 5 hours. For you, it could be 15 minutes. It really depends on what your goals are, what strategy you're using, and what you're doing. That's what I do in the chat room. So when I find these signals, I'm thinking and speaking my thoughts out loud, and I'm analyzing and assessing the conditions to determine whether or not, if I call out a short on this trade, is this trade even going to work? There are times and ways that you can determine if there's enough volume, enough participation, and enough momentum to expect any of these bullish or bearish candles to move to the expected take profit levels. And if it doesn't look like it's going to, then I just leave it alone. And I left it alone until it actually printed an opportunity for us up here when it reversed and went back down during the Asian session. So that's one of the other things I do in the chat room is I share my strategies not only for identifying these techniques that I developed, but also how to read the markets. That's really what this comes down to, is how to read the markets. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in my chat room. That's what I'm doing every 30 minutes, every 1 hour as time passes. So again, only one losing trade. It's the only trade that I've lost in the chat room in a long time, several months, and it was only 9 pips. But it was still a relatively slow month. You can see here with a lot of this consolidation, I really didn't do anything. There really wasn't anything for me to do except for this trade here. And then after that on Thursday and Friday, it just went sideways into consolidation. And again, I was doing the same thing, assessing the conditions in the chat room, sharing all of my thoughts, all of my ideas and my expectations to everybody in the chat room, teaching them how I'm identifying and reading the markets to determine if there's enough momentum to expect to take any of these bullish or bearish candles and expect it to pay in a relatively short period of time. And because there was no reason to get into any of these trades. So I teach you exactly how to do that. I think that's a really critical skill that you need to learn for longevity, to be able to stay in the business and stay as a trader years after year after year. I've been doing this for over 18 years. And what has allowed me to stay in this business is my ability to read the markets, to know which trades are more risky and pass on them and not be tempted to take them, even though they might look good. And then again, like I said, to read the markets and to know when it's likely to go sideways. So there's no reason for me to be putting my capital into the market and letting it sit there for 24 hours because I'm trying to day trade here. I'm not trying to swing trade. And if my goal is to day trade, I want to get in a relatively short period of time. So I have to read the markets correctly, accurately. There are times and phases, and when it's going through these transitional phases where you really can't determine that, but eventually with enough time, you get the confirmation. You just need more data and you just need more confirmation. So if you want to join the chat room, this is a perfect way to learn not only my trading strategies, because I teach you my system, but I'm also going to call trades like this out here for you in the chat room. You're going to know exactly what take profit levels to trade it to, when I'm in the trade and when I'm out of the trade. And I'm going to teach you how to read the markets.